Good morning. It is now 11:44 a.m., and I will call the Sewage and Water Board Operations Committee meeting to order. Special counsel, please call the roll.
Director Kennedy,
Here.
Director Cole,
Here.
Director Greenwich,
Present.
Director Thomas,
Present.
Director Stewart.
Present.
Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We'll now proceed with our two presentation items. First up, we have Caitlin Temrick, our General Superintendent. We'll proceed with a presentation on the Dwyer Canal update.
Yeah, thank you very much. We've presented in city council chambers on this on multiple occasions, as have not done a report to the board, so I'm glad that we're able to do that here today. Oh, do I have the clicker? I have the clicker. Okay. So I want to talk briefly, the overall context of this is that back in mid-December and in January, items were brought to our attention regarding releases of sewer from our sewer collection system into the Dwyer Stormwater Canal in New Orleans East. And so we'll go into the more details on that. But I did just want to take a moment and speak to the kind of the mode of sewage contamination of stormwater. We've got a graphic here that goes over the number of ways that you can essentially have inflow and infiltration. So inflow happens when there is a direct connection between the sewer and drain systems. Infiltration occur when there are defects in the pipes that allow water to exit and subsequently enter, as well as overflows when you have a manhole that becomes too full of water and the sewer cannot move and it actually comes out of the manhole onto the street. So primarily the situation that we are dealing with in this instance is an infiltration issue. But overall, when you do have sewer contamination of stormwater water bodies, typically you would limit recreation activities to prevent direct contact, swimming, boating, fishing, sometimes restrictions on fishing and shellfish harvesting. There can also be potential negative impacts to aquatic life and the ecosystem balance. In addition to inflow and infiltration, there's also other sources of sewer contamination, such as pet and animal waste and yard waste. Just again, a quick summary of how there can be discharges of sewer into the stormwater system. A sanitary overflow that comes out of a sewer manhole into a drainage manhole. A subsurface break in a sewer pipe that gets into a crack in the stormwater pipe, which is the situation that we are dealing with here. You can also have a pump station overflow, which we also had in December, which was corrected. And also, on occasion, a sewer house connection may be directly connected to the storm system instead of the sewer system during construction. It doesn't happen as often, but it does happen on occasion. And this is a quick note that discharges into the stormwater canals are managed under the MS4 permit that we manage with multiple other co-permittees. The Sewage and Water Board is one of them, but those illegal discharges are industrial waste, construction debris, grease, just general dumping, and then overall contaminated stormwater runoff, including grass clippings, oils, soaps, anything that can get into the catch basins. So I put together a graphic of the engagement and activities that we've had along this area. We began meeting with the community members back in early January. Director Greenwich was present for that as well, and we have been meeting with them since that time. We met with them most recently at the end of April, and are planning to meet with them again in July after we've completed the work that we have committed to doing. So just some graphics of the work that we've done. We have done some repairs, which you can see the green pipe on the top top left. That's indicative of what a replacement point repair would look like. We have done sampling and inspections. We've done smoke testing, dye testing. We have completed repairs to the Cerise pump station, which was a contributing factor in this instance. And we have also recovered sewer when we knew there was an overflow event or an ongoing discharge event. So we have done a variety of things since that time. We have also put out signs. We ended up drafting these up, mocking these up, and putting them out along the canal. We, again, continue to meet with the residents and have also done some additional kind of quality of life items as represented by the manhole cover here on the right. Instead of having an open manhole, which is not just a safety perspective, can also cause just odor discharges and that kind of thing, or odor emissions. And so we have put up these temporary manhole covers in the instances when we do need to use temporary pumps at sewer stations. So specific to the issues that we have discovered and taken action on along this area, actually, I want to just take a step back for a little bit of context. So the Dwyer Canal kind of runs in through the middle of this map. It's the blue line, and you can see the different cross streets: Wilson, Crowder, Bundy, Reed, Wright. And the residential streets typically are running perpendicular to this, so they're running up and they terminate at the canal. And in the streets, there is a sewer line and there's also a stormwater line in the middle of each road as well. So at the end of each road that terminates into the canal, there is a stormwater pipe that is constantly discharging water. So that's common. It's just in this case, you see it because it's an open canal. This is, happening all across the city, but this is just a unique configuration due to the configuration of the streets and that it's an open canal. And so this is all, you can just see it, which is in terms of the stormwater discharge. So again, primarily what we've ultimately done is realize that there was not just one issue that was occurring. There's multiple issues that we'll go over here. But most recently, we have been conducting dye testing on 6 streets that we see to have repeat issues or persistent issues with sewer getting into the storm drain and then therefore into the canal. We have completed the dye testing on 3 of those streets: Galahad, Lurline, and Bonita. We've identified, I think, 7 point repairs on Galahad, a combination of 5 more on the other 2 streets. Those have all since been repaired as of, I think, yesterday. And the dye testing does allow you we use a contractor for this. We are able to specifically pinpoint the location where there is a break in the sewer pipe, and we're able to go in and fix that section of sewer pipe. So that is ultimately what is stopping, preventing future sewer from coming out of that pipe and into the stormwater. We are not making corrections to the stormwater pipe, because obviously if you have to have a corresponding defect in the stormwater pipe, that's another effort. But the important thing is stopping the sewer from getting out of that pipe. So we're making those repairs. And Charlene, Arthur, and Citrus remain. We've been hampered a little bit by weather events, but we'll finish the dye testing on those and make any report repairs on those streets. We've also done a lot of inspection on the area, have identified some blockages at various points. Our teams have flushed and cleaned line segments on those 3 streets: Bonita, Lurline, and Citrus, as well as likely several others. We have identified a couple of other illicit discharges where we believe it was concrete debris getting into a box canal that was also ending up in the Dwyer Canal. And I did mention that the Cerise pump station, which is, let's see if I can show this on the photo, the middle top box where you can see an excavator there, and there's an arrow pointing to a green star. That is the location of the Cerise pump station. That pump station, the permanent pumps at that location went out of service in mid-December. And so what we had to do is put in a bypass pump. I don't have a photo of this here, I'm sorry, but ultimately we couldn't use the pumps at the station, so we had to put a temporary pump and pump sewer from one manhole into another. And so in order to get it into the next place, so it needs to go into the sewer force main. That's not, it keeps sewer off of the streets, but it's not nearly as, efficient and effective as it should be. And so what we saw during that time is that there was, elevated levels. It's just not able to pump sewer as quickly or as efficiently. And so those sewer lines were surcharged during that time, and is, what was causing, I think, a lot of contributing to smells and odors and other challenges. That, in mid-March, we were able to get new pumps installed, but first we had to actually replace valves and suction lines in the station. That was done in early March. We got the new pumps installed, and we are seeing improvement in terms of surcharge throughout the area. And last, but really first, this was also in December, there was a temporary pump failure at the Castle Manor pump station. We resolved that issue that same day. We flushed the area and recovered as much sewer as possible at that time. And just as a point out, I don't know that I have that well shown here on this map, but that is another location on the map. It's actually at the end of Gawain Street, which is one block of Crowder. So we're continuing to, we've started putting or explaining this in 3 different buckets. So the first thing is to identify the problems, right? This is a large area with a large number of places that things could be happening. So we're finishing the identify stage. We are also in the repair stage. We've made those repairs to the Cerise pump station, which ended up being over nearly $400,000 by the time we were all said and done. We've made those point repairs, and my goal is to have them all completed by the end of June. If we're not able to complete the dye testing due to weather conditions, that will just be delayed, but that is our goal, and our team knows that's our goal. And then in terms of the prevention aspect, this is, we want to not have this happen. And while we're not seeing the manhole overflows in this area, likely because it is able to relieve the pressure by going out of the pipe into the storm drain, we actually have an RFI that we've received responses on for biotechnology to address blockages due to fats, oils, and greases. In New Orleans East in general, we do see this is an area with some repeat sewer overflows. So we've received responses on that. I have not reviewed them yet personally, but looking forward to seeing the results of that. And we're also doing upgrading our public education on fats, oils, and greases and wipes. So this is, again, I'm not saying is the cause of the specific problem here, but in general, we're taking this as an opportunity to do more education to the community. Flushable wipes is a problem across the entire United States. It is not specific to here, but we have not traditionally done very much around messaging, and so that is something that we're going to be taking up more on going forward. Just to go back, I do have a color-coded slide here just to show the progress that we've made, what is in progress, and we are working right now on a website update that will have all this information posted so that it is available along with the sample and results that we have, talking a little bit more about sources, the concerns, an update on the Dwyer Canal, as well as the Industrial Canal and our pilot project overall. So we're getting that up, working with the environmental team to get that up so that is fully available for residents. And did just want to note a couple other concerns that we've heard from the community. So I did mention that we're continuing to collect those samples along different points along the canal to assess the effectiveness of those repairs. We are still finding that bacteria concentrations are still high. We are hoping that now that we've made these improvements in this area that we will see those decrease. And I have said this and I'll say it again, if we don't see that, then we're not going away. We're going to continue to investigate, but we're hopeful we will see that decrease. We're still recommending no contact with the stormwater canals. And we have heard, concerns regarding air emissions. Hydrogen sulfide is the source of an odor from sewer. This can often be observed via smell at very low concentrations. Different people have different levels of sensitivity, but we're mindful of that, and as such are taking steps to barricade those manholes and put as much protective covers as possible. But we also have to make sure that we're not creating an additional hazard by having a buildup of explosive gases by making something completely airtight. So there's a little bit of a, kind of a balance to be struck there. But, it's also fair that residents do not want to see just an open manhole with, sewer that can be coming out of it. So we're doing that and making that more of our standard protocol. And when we do have temporary pumps at our sewer pump stations, which we do at Castle Manor and at several other locations, we do that if a pump is out of service, we need to have either completely replace that capacity with a temporary pump or partially replace it. We use electric pumps to the extent possible, and when we do have diesel pumps, we are using quiet pumps, which are, less noisy to be out of respect for the neighbors, and are using tier 1 engines from an emissions perspective. All right, I think that's my last slide. So just acknowledging that, there's a number of public safety concerns in this area. We are addressing them and are not going away, certainly, when this work is done. I'm hopeful we'll see good results, but if we don't, we'll keep going.
Thank you. I'm glad you went back to this slide, Caitlin. So what, just so we can kind of quantify, these streets right here, when we're talking just specifically about Dwyer Canal, we're thinking once this work is done, then, hopefully the end of June, that will alleviate this part of what we're seeing, the issues that are primarily existing.
That is our expectation, and that is our hope. And so these streets were the ones we've seen persistent issues with sewer out of the storm canals. We did have good news. Our team went back out to Galahad last week and saw no flow coming out of it, which is great and fantastic. So we'll be doing the same for Lurline and Bonita to continue to monitor those individually and make sure we're not seeing anything there.
Okay, and the only pumps, again, when we're talking about just the Dwyer Canal, that's, prevalent with here is the Castle Manor and the Cerise pump. There's no other pumps that we're having issues with?
No, and so the Cerise pump station is fully back in service. So
Okay.
no issues there. All the temporary pump that had been in the park near there has been removed. And there is one temporary pump at Castle Manor, and we are getting quotes on that now. We have to replace the suction lines, and so that will be a contractor effort to do that work.
And I'm glad you brought up about the airtight thing, because I know that's been, a point of contention as well. And that makes sense that we don't want to build up of gases and boom, that would be the worst thing ever. And then this is already live on the website as far as the Dwyer Canal updates.
It is not, but it will be.
Okay. All right, when do
We're
we?
working through that now, if not the end of this week, next week, to be able to have
Okay.
that posted, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So this was great. Really enjoyed it. I also, I'm excited that that'll be on the website. I think we need on the site every time we have something that is very public profile, like the industrial canal. Those are the two things that come to mind. Folks should be able to go to the website and get the dashboard for what's going on. But I'm also curious about, Randy, when we have, now that I'm digging in deeper into how we responded to this, do we have an element with door hangers or something? What can we do? Because it seemed like it took a while for the public to be able to understand what that work was.
And we did develop some door hangers. And
Yeah.
we actually also put up some signs at the site of the overflow.
Yeah, because that odor thing and the lock seal, that was a big area for misunderstanding for a good little while of what community members were thinking success looked like or progress looked like. They didn't realize that solid work was, like, they didn't understand for a while. And so I'm wondering how we can revisit, what our campaigns look like. And I know comms resources are tight, but I think it just kind of reiterates how critical communications is for all of our work when it's public facing. And so I think it's really, really important that we dig deeper into that communication, because it took a while for folks to understand what good work looked like. And it wasn't what I think a lot of people assumed it looked like. And so this kind of reiterates that for me.
Thank you
We'll,
for that.
I'll work with communications, see how we can improve. We learned a lot after the first 2 months of it, I must admit.
Yeah,
But after that, we did start having regular meetings with the SAGE and all.
yeah,
And then going out to the site regularly and having some progress, as you're seeing here.
yeah.
But we need to be able to articulate that and make sure people understand it.
Yeah, I've been looking at that picture of the seal around the manhole, and I'm thinking of images that he's sent me. And he's been a great, voice for folks, and I think a good partner. But I want us to try to close that gap faster, and leverage that voice to get the message out.
Yeah.
Or I don't know his organization, but I just know that we might need some help getting the word out next time there's something where we need to educate the folks. I don't know if that's what they do. You would know.
Yeah, I
better
was
than
about to say,
would. Yeah.
thank you for saying that, Chad, because I think that's what you were alluding to, the meeting in July that would be having. And we did have a meeting with Sage and his organization in April. And that was kind of, one of my points that I brought up is like, what does success look like?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that that's something that we always have to visit. And it's about the information, but I think more importantly, it's about the access to the information. And, Councilmember Hughes will say it, I live out there, the demographics of that, it's not necessarily, let's always go to a website. I think that's the perfect just end all be all access. But having just kind of those handheld things, door hangers, like you're saying, would be important, especially considering, something like this. So I think continued partnership with his organization. He has been a fierce advocate, and, I appreciate being held accountable by anybody. So I appreciate him for doing that. But I think that we definitely have to leverage all community members when something like this is occurring. And, I'm always here to help with that.
If I may, I'd like Sierra to speak a little bit. I want you to talk about door hangers, the signs, and meeting with the community.
So we have developed emergency door hangers. So for work that is sewer overflow, transmission main break, that is in development and that is in the crew's hands. So they have that now. We also did do the signs for the sewer wastewater incidents. So they are actively posted at Dwyer Canal and along that canal. There are additional signs in stock in case we have this issue on the West Bank, like we did recently. We had a sewer issue on the West Bank. We posted it until that issue was resolved. So that is done. They were posted at Industrial Canal when that advisory was in effect. We are still communicating with Sage as well as having the community meetings this week in District E is really going to amplify what we've done for Dwyer Canal. So that is going to be another way that we're trying to extend the reach. So it is out there, but partnering with Healthy Golf, Sage being an active partner, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah, what's the turnaround time on like those marketing printing materials? I'm just curious, like something happens like this, what is the turnaround time to get that printed and then distributed?
So it depends. If it's a weekend incident and we're trying to recreate the will, then the turnaround time can take a little bit longer. It depends if the vendor has capacity to do it. Now, we are starting to actually talk to procurement about this yesterday, so I'm a little bit excited. We are gonna do an additional RFP for vendors to have a non-compete and non-exclusivity for vendors for printing services for graphics so that we can deal with the payment issue rather easily and have that RFP. So that is something that is coming. So we talked about that yesterday, discussed that. That is how we're going to move forward. And we think we'll be able to turn around quicker than 2 weeks.
And then like, do we have like ready-made templates?
We have ready-made templates for emergency work orders, standard work orders for the door hangers, as well as now the sewer signs. So that is already made, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Anyone else? Thank you, Caitlin. That's great. Our next presentation is going to be with our Chief Information Officer, Darrell Ives.
All right, thank you, Chair Kennedy and Board for your time. I know this has been a marathon morning and we're now into afternoon, so I'm going to try to cruise through pretty quickly. But this, technology modernization and artificial intelligence. So this is this presentation is a direct outgrowth of the May Governance Committee. Director Scruggs, I think specifically some of the committee members had discussed AI approach and how we're handling it as an organization. So I want to take this opportunity to overview that. So this isn't a technical presentation by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not going to teach you how to hack the Pentagon, or you're not going to walk out of here with an understanding of how to write prompts, anything to that nature. But just generally high level, AI it's a rapidly expanding technology. And we're seeing it all over the place. So there's many approaches to it: agentic AI, generative AI, Copilot, Grok, Anthropic, Claude, Gemini. You know, we're walking around. We have personal assistants on our cell phone now. So it's very ubiquitous in how it's how it's being adopted into our lives. So here at SWIBNO, our approach to AI adoption and the framework, and I wanted to share that understanding of how we're adopting it going forward. So it's hard to have the conversation of AI adoption without first addressing risk and what that means to the organization. So I did outline some foundational principles here that anything in technology modernization as an organizational risk is and how it's defined. So risk is inherently a likelihood or probability that an adverse event occurs and what that consequence or impact of the event. So when we discuss in context of AI, we're mostly talking about data leakage and how that information could be used against the organization, the staff, or even the public, especially in critical infrastructure. So just defining back to information security and what's important, I've adopted the definition here from an academic research paper, Anderson, 2003, which applies in this context of information security as a well-informed sense of risk and controls are in balance. And I'll highlight why that's important going forward. But I also want to point out that risk in this context is not just a technical function, it's an organizational responsibility in how we address it. So AI adoption in the water sector specifically, our priority as an organization is to protect the Sewage and Water Board, protect our customers, our ratepayers. So that's ultimately what's most important here in how we address technology modernization as a whole. So again, going back to the cybersecurity aspect of this, and we know cybersecurity risk is not, it doesn't stop at the parish boundary or the district boundary. It's a global phenomenon that we have to address nation state actors and threat actors that are inherently trying to attack our system and use them in various ways or information. So we're also seeing trends that vendor contracts are increasingly shifting that risk back to organizations. So those provisions, if not reviewed properly, could introduce additional risks to the organization. So the stakes aren't symmetric, as I point out here with commercial industry. If a retail organization loses a sale because of their adoption of AI, that doesn't have the same impact as us as a public utility and what we mean to the community as a critical infrastructure. So just this morning, I think there was an article, Starbucks walking back their inventory management system, which they promoted for inventory asset management. And one of the concerns there is that accuracy of the imaging they're using to manage inventory control became problematic, so that when you weigh the benefits of implementation of these systems versus the consequence, those are things that we're constantly evaluating from an IT and as an organization as a whole. So the example I like to use, AI as we know it in current state, is it's kind of like an intern, right? They're very eager to do things and perform tasks and can get a lot done, but you have to constantly check it. You have to check the work, and there's what's called human in the loop in the decision-making process. So not to say that it's not going to improve over the next few years, but current state as how I see it, it's evolving quickly. And if you asked me 3 years ago about AI as we know it today, that answer would have been completely different. So we know this is coming quick. And the key point here I want to make is that AI governance as a whole is not necessarily a separate program. We view it, and I've had the discussion with the leadership team, is it's built into how modernization decisions are made. So we're not carving out a separate governance program specifically for AI because it's proliferated to most of our modern systems, which I'll highlight that this is built into our whole technology modernization strategy. So why this matters now? As I mentioned, AI is everywhere. It's in the products we buy. It's in the phone. It's on our web browsers. It's hard to get away from it in discussion, and it's probably topic of a lot of conversations. even at conferences. But in context of risk, there's really four strategies for risk: that you either avoid it, you mitigate, you transfer to cybersecurity insurance, or you accept the risk. And in this case, AI is not really an avoidance option. It's here, it's present, it's built into the systems we buy. There's computers, laptops now that have AI embedded in with their chipsets. There's platforms that we're procuring that have AI components that are built into the solution. So AI isn't coming, it's already here. And you know, the proliferation, as I mentioned, over the last 3 years have been exponential. And I don't think anybody could have predicted this. So as I point out, the stakes are high. As a critical infrastructure, we have the responsibility to protect our ratepayers and the public safety. So we should have an elevated standard of how we proceed in the adoption of an AI, but also weighing the pros of artificial intelligence in technology solution, we see the benefits. So the intent here is not to be, or the path forward is not to be restrictive. It's to ensure that we have, again, that reasonable assurance that risk and controls are in balance. And I'm going to foot stomp on that a little bit because I think that is truly an underlying principle. So we're constantly evaluating our risk appetite as a critical infrastructure organization. And that starts with where we're at currently, our AI policy. So this was drafted in late 2024, led primarily by our IT director, Kathy Smith, who one of the benefits, as a side note, we're both involved with what's called the CIO Forum, and that's a national collaborative of CIOs across water sector that meet annually. So to the benefit that we're all addressing the same issues as the water sector, Kathy was able to collaborate with some of the leadership across other water utilities and get some guidance and crafted a policy here that was brought forward just prior to my arrival. And this set a good foundation. We're in the process right now of reviewing that, and we know it needs to be updated. It's going to be constantly evolving. So that's one of the goals I'll mention later on in this presentation. But currently, this applies to all staff, contractors, and really what it does is it prohibits the entry of sensitive, or PII, personally identifiable information and data to AI components. It mostly addresses Microsoft Copilot, which is one of the tools that we've accepted and adopted within the organization as a as a product. So we're primarily a Microsoft environment, and it was a natural fit. So Copilot within our environment. We did tag on the training requirement, which is through our service provider KnowBe4, one of the nationally recognized training provider. So what we wanted to do is educate our staff on what some of the risks of using AI and make that appropriate for how they implement it. So we have approved generative AI platforms or agentic AI platforms, I should say, and then Microsoft Copilot is one of our primary. Currently, it's just about 40 users who've completed and requested the training. We have more in the queue right now, so it is a smaller group that have been approved to use AI components, but we're constantly reviewing additional platforms and maturing our formal vetting process through cybersecurity in the legal department. So specifically to the directors and the board's ask is how we're approaching this across enterprise, legal, and operations. So from an enterprise approach, we do have a body that was formed early on. It was a working group of users that were knowledgeable and proficient in this space. So they helped form the policy and some of the resources behind this momentum. So this is the modernization governance mechanism that we're also proposing that we go forward with, and it's essentially a working group body consisting primarily of, I'm starting from the bottom here, so our IT director and future OT director, but we have a project manager who's been in charge of the West Power Complex, who's very knowledgeable, that's been serving in that OT director, operational technology director role for some time. So he's been actively filling that, and they, from a working implementation level, that's the body that, kind of boots on the ground and how we can go through the first tier of assessing new and modern technologies or emerging technologies. Going up, we're proposing a more formalized steering committee. This is not an exclusive list, and I have on the slide that myself and the general superintendent would co-chair. My role, just to be clear on this, is not a decision authority. It's really to advise on the risk of cybersecurity and leave it to the rest of the stakeholders as a committee going forward on how we move, how we adopt, specific use cases of artificial intelligence. So we've stood up this group informally. Going forward, we'll mature this and make it into a formal body. We're also, I've set some specific goals of the body in mind that we'll address going forward, but also mentioned in here a cadence for each group. And this is intended really as a minimum cadence of meeting monthly. The groups already meet more frequent than this, but just from a governance approach, it was a natural fit in how do we already approach modernization. So from an operations perspective, there's really 3 domains that we consider across, and again, I'm using the word enterprise, but the enterprise, operational, and the workforce enablement needs of the organization. So from an enterprise level, there are new tools introduced that enhance our reporting ability, our analytics, and decision support dashboards. We can certainly leverage those. We've had conversation with Esri and other geospatial providers that are introducing AI components within their platforms, and then workforce, even within our modernization platform for Dayforce, and how we approach that has led us down the path of introducing more AI capabilities within those specific systems. And what's key to that is they're part of that offering that we're selected from an enterprise platform. So it's segmented, that we're not crossing boundaries on different systems. And I also highlight a couple use cases here that came into example in previous discussion. The legal case management system, I would classify this as a high-risk system because of the sensitivity of the information. Special counsel and I have had some brief conversation about how we ensure protective measures on this, make sure that it's well protected and access controls are accordingly. On probably a medium risk assessment would be our engineering drawing document repository. We're looking at solutions that offer advanced search capabilities, tagging of information in engineering drawings. This is a capability we think that might enhance our productivity and workflow on the operation side, access to the information. But the key, again, is that the accuracy, that with AI you have hallucination, that can't happen in systems like these, because if it starts to stray. So that's where we're constantly evaluating these solutions to make sure they're an appropriate fit for what's available at this time. And it does continue to evolve. Specifically from the legal and records, I include records management and the public trust aspect here, is that AI governance is really embedded into a lot of the new contracts that we're seeing in the agreements that we sign. They're not just tools that we use internally, but we're seeing a lot of intellectual property rights in perpetuity and things that need to be addressed going forward. So AI provisions are appearing in these agreements that, as I mentioned, if they're not reviewed appropriately, model use rights or limited liability exclusions, then those are of concern too. So when AI outputs contribute to regulatory violations, that's a separate matter. We address that. as well. We're seeing guidance from EPA and CISA on the use and adoption of AI tools. And I think we'll continue to see that from federal regulatory bodies as well. So the regulatory landscape is shifting at a very rapid pace. And our next steps, sorry I have it in small print here, but the next steps are really what's important here is that from the legal perspective, what we're looking to do is develop standards and provisions for, or really what I would call a review checklist to work with legal and say, here's what we should be evaluating, here's the common language that maybe we submit into our contracts. Also establish data handling and standards for legal AI use, but also the need to monitor the regulatory landscape and make sure that we're in compliance with that. So that leads into our data governance and enterprise architecture aspect. And segueing into that, I mentioned the data governance as one of the, so actually let me back up a little bit. Two of the key areas where evaluating our resources and our AI and our use and adoption is really a matter of, our data is only as good as, or our systems are only as good as the data that we feed into it. And we're going through the process already for our systems modernization for enterprise asset management, HR system. We just recently launched the Oracle Financial Systems platform. So our major systems already have a pathway to improvement. And as I mentioned, there's some AI embedded within those systems. But we also have resource constraints in terms of how we evaluate and onboard new systems. And two gaps that I really noticed were one, we don't have a dedicated enterprise architecture. And what I mean by that is that traditionally in organizations, you would have an architect that reviews the business perspective, the technical perspective, the financial perspective, the legal perspective. There's models and frameworks for that. Zachman and Togaf, I won't get into I could write a book on this, but the frameworks for that are pretty well established, and we don't necessarily have a dedicated resource for that as an enterprise architect. So that's one of the goals that I'm hoping to propose next year, is that we start to build more of resource that is able to help address that gap. The second is an information or data governance management role. As I mentioned, we have not only the regulatory compliance side and a need for keeping pace with that, but also on the utilization and how we use and adopt it. So for example, we use Copilot, but we also need administrators that are watching that to make sure that we don't have what's called data loss prevention, or we're not introducing either unintentionally or intentionally customer information into these systems. So we have some controls in that already, but we don't have dedicated resources for that. And there's really two other, I would say, areas of focus that I'm already working on addressing some of the resource side, and that's dedicated cybersecurity resources, which I have I've submitted the request for these positions through City Civil Service, and that's in process, as well as information management and records compliance, which is in process. So we're just pending approval on those. But these two recommendations, the position specifically, I think will help position us for things that are already in progress and how we govern AI systems going forward. So to go back up to a governance model, just to keep it simple, a framework here is 3-tier. I mentioned low, medium, high risk, or low, moderate, high risk. So tier 1 is what we've already vetted and approved. So I mentioned Copilot, that we've already put safeguards around that system. We have training requirements. We have policy to enforce, how that's used across our acceptable use policy. So that's what I would consider relatively low risk at this point in terms of our adoption. We have tools like Canva, which, if you're familiar with that, is an imaging software. We already use that in our environment. We're looking at positioning that to the government enterprise model, which actually would give better brand standards and template control to the communications team. So those are examples of, I think, where we don't need to do heavy analysis, or it could be the division lead or division head that can approve the use of those tools, or it's already been vetted. Most of what our adoption would fall into this tier 2 category, and that's our enterprise systems. For example, Trimble, our enterprise asset management system, which is just started implementation recently. That has an AI component to it, and how they're introducing, and because it's a cloud offering, they're introducing the capabilities, and that's ongoing. So it's inherently part of that solution, and as those capabilities grow, we adopt them with that. And we'll continuously monitor the safeguards and the controls around that as well. We have a software as a service provider called IC Change, and they have some analytics in how they consume 311 data and our work order information. And recent meeting with them was that they're improving service request processing approximately 97% faster, or they're avoiding unnecessary field deployments on the drainage side, which is helping save hours of. So we understand the benefits of the productivity utilization with AI. And those are good use cases, I think, that we evaluate going forward, of what the trade-offs are between the productivity or the cost efficiency gains versus the risk that we inherit. And finally, the tier 3, which I already mentioned, an example of that would be something that needs a lot higher level of protection, like the legal case management system going forward. That would be something that we would need. Going back to the body of working committee, and then the steering group. So we would need executive leadership consulting on how that proceeds, and that's where the steering body would come in to help provide that. Finally, last slide, I believe, is wanted to highlight just our, really quickly, the roadmap going forward. So I mentioned that our AI policy is currently under review, being updated. I mentioned the fact that we're working with legal already on checklist and some of the standard language that we can include in our contracts. Mentioned the cross-functional working group. So we're on a good path, I think, this year to continue to evaluate risk and explore how we can modernize systems with with AI. Next year, as I mentioned, I'm hoping to establish a couple key roles that will help us excel a little bit more quickly in these areas and monitor some of the regulatory compliance. And then, 3 years out, as rapidly as AI is expanding, I would suggest that, we continuously evaluate the intelligence program across all functions, and then we move into, and this is going to happen with some of our modernization systems, we start moving and turning the corner into predictive analytics and predictive infrastructure that helps our operational teams get to a state where, we can really leverage the information, that we can get a quality data in and leverage that information to help drive results that, that are better supporting our operation side. And the other mention, I think I glanced over this accidentally, was that I'm proposing that we do an update, or I do an update to the board at least twice a year on modernization. I don't know that I've addressed the board often enough, but or the public for that matter, in that, if there's not insight into how we're moving forward from a technology perspective, then it's, that should not be overlooked. We're actively pursuing these measures, and I guess what I would ask the board is I appreciate your continued support, and and hoping that we're measured and deliberate and disciplined in going forward, and that's what we hope to deliver. So with that, any questions?
I have a couple. You mentioned the standard language for contracts. So, and you said you're kind of doing an advisement role. So when it comes to a procurement process, and we have a vendor, so you're trying to get language to ensure that whatever the vendor is using also, because they're going to be, having access to our information. That's what we're trying to get to, and in current state, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I'll say a specific example is that we reviewed a contract where our information that was part of the system solution would be used to educate their models in perpetuity, which we've worked with legal on refining that language on what that means to us. And so when data is anonymized, there's some, I guess, legal considerations on how that information is fed to the model, and those are areas that are really new for
Right.
us as an organization, because AI is just now becoming a center focus topic. So we're exploring those.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I'm thinking not just like in data, but even in work, that Caitlin's doing and those kind of vendors would have that. The Microsoft Copilot, I know you had that kind of as a low risk. However, depending on how many users they have, if they're sharing confidential information with their emails, and because Microsoft Copilot might grab, files here and there. So is that what you're proposing that the enterprise architect's going to be looking at? Do you have, without revealing too much about our security, like, is that being monitored appropriately right now, when people are using Copilot?
So I included that as a low risk just because we've already established right controls for that. So there's different implementations of Copilot, whether it's in the browser or if it's integrated within the Office 365 environment. Our security team has put protective measures in place. In some cases, it's a little probably frustrating to users that, why don't I have full access? And we've seen instances where information was introduced to that environment that's been caught by our team, so that we want to prevent that, right? So
Right.
we don't want customer information ending up in these environments, and so we have proper controls in that arena, and then we also have the training requirement for that. So we believe we're taking the due diligence, but Microsoft in itself, Copilot, yeah, I would still classify the platform as probably medium risk, just like anything else, but we've already adopted this, and that's where we left it. And I think Kathy wants to chime in.
And just to add, hey, our Copilot licenses that we're using, which is contained within our Microsoft ELA, has the protective feature that anything we feed into it does not help the Copilot learn, right? So we do have that within our ELA in the protections itself.
Perfect.
Yeah, it doesn't leave the organization, essentially.
Okay. And then just the last thing, kudos about the enterprise architect. I think that's excellent. And I feel like that can bleed into audit as well, like as far as a committee. And I think we need to make sure we see you more often. So that's it.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the committee? No? All right. Thanks again, Dara. That's great. All right. That concludes our presentations for today. Are there any other comments, questions from this committee? If not, are there any public comments?
No public comments, Chair.
No public comments. Being seen no further business for this committee, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Director Thomas, second by Director Greenwich. Any questions? None. All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.